Thanks again, Lala. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Lala, you've watched, a little bit of or some part of one or two videos in the past, and you know that this conversation is normally had with fathers, and that the idea is to get help for us, right? Primarily because historically men don't spend a lot of time talking about parenting, and so we do a lot of harm to ourselves because we're not spending time having conversations around fatherhood and improving our parenting skills, etc. So then recently I said to myself, well, what else can I introduce to this conversation so that fathers would benefit from it? And recently I've had a number of fathers that are fathers to only daughters. And I don't have any daughters. I only have boys. And by virtue of me being a boy, I'm lacking quite a bit in this department. And although I will not benefit immediately directly from what you're about to say, I am certain that a lot of the other guys will. So hopefully that sets the stage a little bit. And so let's go back. So we know that you're a mom, so let's leave that there. We'll catch up with that. But let's go back to the very early stages of you as a little baby girl and a man that is your father. What's the I don't know. Go there. What comes back?
So what comes back is I'm the oldest of four, and there's three daughters and a son. Our dad, in my opinion, was an amazing dad. The relationship that we had with him it's like he let us do what we wanted. Our mom was more of the one who told us yes, no, maybe, but dad was always go. He was a good dad. He provided for us. When we were little, if they had problems, we never knew. He made sure he provided for us. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor either. And like I said, I'm the oldest, and my sisters are just 18 months. So it was really three girls at one time at the house. We had a good relationship between the parents and the three of us. Our brother came 10 years later, and that you did notice, the difference. We were daddy's girls. And then his only son, born on his birthday, not that can't say that he didn't love him, but it was like a macho love. He would hug us, but he would yell at him,
Oh, really?
But I know he loved my brother, but it was more of he would tell us, because I was 10 years older, we tried to always do for him. He was kind of like my little son, my little brother. But at the same time, my dad would tell us, don't spoil him because he's going to grow up to depend on you girls. He was just our brother. But overall, he was a great father.
Okay. Lala, I'm a quick break here. I'm noticing you're holding onto the phone. Is it?
I am.
Yeah. Is it possible to prop it on something? Because it's going to be shaky for an hour and a half.
I'm not. Only because of the little headphone thing.
If you flip it upside down, that's the video. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
How about there?
Oh, infinitely better. Infinitely better. Thank you. So, all right. I wonder how much we can. I mean, I really like what you're saying. I'm thinking I'd love to explore that dynamic, right? This idea that your dad could be so vastly different in the way that he thought of his girls, and then the way that he thought of his son. What else can you say on that?
Like I said, we had a good life, and he was a good dad. Sometimes he would have his little outbursts. The older we got, you kind of start to realize, not that he was a bad person, but that he wasn't the super dad we thought he was. It bothers me a lot the way he talked to our brother, because he didn't talk to us like that. you know, and
Lala, just really quick, really quick. I know you love your earrings and you look amazing in them, but
take them off.
they keep hitting the hit.
Dangling
They're hitting the. Thanks. You
the
still look
headphones.
wonderful without them.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I just didn't. I couldn't understand why the difference. You know, it didn't make him less of a man because my brother's an amazing man, husband, father. You know, but I just felt like why be so harsh with him and we could get away with what we got away with.
Did you ever ask him?
No, we didn't ask him.
Did did you? What was your theory then? What did you eventually come up with? What was?
That it was just a Salcedo thing that we're going to be, you know, tough. Boys aren't supposed to cry. Boys aren't supposed to feel. Boys aren't supposed to, you know, I don't know if show emotion, if that's for a lack of a better word. Um, like I said, I know my dad loved him, but I didn't understand why he wasn't like that with him. I mean, we didn't play sports, the three girls, we didn't play sports, but my brother would play sports, and it was real rare that he would go to a game. It was always my mom and us, you know. I just, I couldn't understand,
Yeah.
you know, and I can't ask him now because he's no longer here. Um, but I think that affected my brother a lot in the sense where my brother's the opposite with his children. He lets them, you know, not spoils them, but he lets them. He's a little bit more lenient. I guess he treats them like he probably would have wanted to be treated.
Mm. So, so Lala, tell me about your relationship, especially particularly just you. Forget about your sisters, forget about your brother. Your relationship with your dad. Okay, earliest memories, good or
Um,
bad.
they were great. They were great. I'm the oldest. You know, he always told me that I was his favorite when I knew that I wasn't.
How did wait
But
wait
it
stop
was
right
great. We
there?
had a good.
How did you know that you weren't his favorite?
He was just, I guess, because one of the twins was closer to him. She was the one that who would stand up to him more to the point where, you know, I was afraid of him. He spanked me one time, and I learned. But you know, it wasn't like I respected him. My sister was a little bit more bold to say, "But Dad, listen." You know, when I would just sit back and just let him. My dad had a temper. My dad had a real bad temper. You know, for the most part, we didn't catch that. My mom caught it, and we didn't understand
You mean
later on in life when one.
your mom was the one who when you say you catch, she caught it. She was the object of his attention. He was
Yes, my
delivering
frustration
his anger to her rather than to you.
to her.
Yeah, and
Right,
you witnessed this.
we did. At a young age, I remember I was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and my mother had bought him a watch. And for whatever reason, the watch stopped working. And instead of, trying to wind it up or trying to see if the battery was not any good anymore, he took it off and he just stomped it on the ground. And my mom's like, well, why would you do that? I mean, out of nowhere, he just exploded. And then he said, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go sit in the middle of the street so a car could hit me. But as a kid, you're like, well, why would. And then my sister, the one that I say is closer, she went and sat in the street with him. And that's the only reason he got out of the street because she sat there. He would have like these random outbursts. And at first, as a teenager, you joke, oh, yeah, dad's a little crazy. But he wasn't abusive to us. But he was mean and it's just no other way to put it. When he drank, it was a total different person.
Was he drinking when she gave him the watch?
No, it was, he may have had a couple of beers. It was so long ago because we were little.
Yeah,
But those are things that sit back, when I think of life with him.
yeah.
Um, I got pregnant real young. I was a teen mom, and I remember my mother asking me, "Are you pregnant?" And I would tell her, "No." I knew I was, but I was so afraid that of the repercussions. It was too late to be afraid. And I remember he came back. He went to go see a sister in New York, and at that time we confirmed that yes, I was pregnant. And when he got home, he told my mom. He said, "My husband is black." He said, "I don't want to see this black guy ever in my life. And when this little baby is born, we're going to give him away for adoption." I'm 15 years old thinking, oh
16?
my God, 15.
15. Wow.
15. And, those were the kind of things that I would never, I told him, "Okay, Papi, if you want me to give the baby up for adoption, we could give him away." But when my mom got home, I said, "Mommy, I can't give my baby away." And my mom told him, look, he told her, he gave her an ultimatum. He said, "Either you pick Claudia and this baby, or I'm going back to New York." And mommy told him, "Well, pack your bags because, she's my daughter." And long story short, I know he was hurt. At the end, he wanted to adopt my son. He wanted me to let him have him. I get it, a hurt of a parent, your 15-year-old daughter's pregnant. What are people going to say? What are people going to think? That was his point of view. My mom was like, it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. But
Yeah.
he was a good dad. Um,
How was he a good
as
dad?
time went on, he was a good dad. Like I said, he provided for us. He was good to us. Not that he was a monster to my mom, but like I said, when things went wrong, she's the one that paid the price. By
Hmm.
arguing, or he would get mad. Um, we had food. It was, like I said, it was three of us. We had birthday parties. We had Christmas. But he was,
Yeah. And mom didn't work.
my mom, at first she didn't. After our brother was born, she did go to work. And then that's when, we helped her take care of our brother while she got off work.
Oh,
But
okay.
mom worked, she cooked, she cleaned, and sometimes he still yelled.
Yeah. Yeah. So what sort of things so when you say that he was a good dad, I mean, besides you say that he provided, but what about on a personal level, like personally, what sort of things what did he do with you specifically that you liked?
With me, he would just, we've always been so family orientated. He would always wanted us all to be there. His comfort zone was having his children all together. He would tell us, "Just tell your friends to come over. We'll cook." We would go to the lakes. How do I explain it? He made sure we were happy. As long as we were happy, we were okay. He was okay. Um, he just, to me, he was just a good dad. There's a lot of people that don't grow up with their father and their mother, and I did. And that instilled me to want my children to have their father and their mother together. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it
Yeah.
doesn't. But my dad, I loved him. I loved him. I was the oldest. He would always tell me, "Niña Bonita." That was his favorite song, just,
So
but
what is it that your experience with your dad um um can be of a lesson to other men? What is it that he did to you that you didn't like?
I just, the only thing that he did is like when he would drink, he would turn into this. Like I said, I was afraid of getting spanked, but I wasn't afraid of him doing anything to me. He was the type of person that when he got mad, he would, he didn't mind making a hole in the wall, just, or breaking every dish in the house. What did, I didn't understand, because the next week you were going to buy another set of dishes because, this is something, his anger, I guess he didn't know how to control his anger, and that scared me.
Mm,
And I didn't want my children to grow up feeling, every time he got mad, we were like on pins and needles, like, oh my God, what is he going to do? Or what is he going to break? He never hit us. He never hit my mom, not that I know of, because when they would argue or they would disagree, it was something that we never experienced. We never saw that until one day my mom, she told me, she said, you know what? I'm leaving your dad and I'm taking your brother with me. And Ricardo, I couldn't understand how my mother was leaving this wonderful man. And I told her, I said, why would you leave us girls with my dad and you're taking my brother with you? She said, your brother is younger. You girls could fend for yourself. We were probably 14, 15, me in that sense, that we were old enough to go to school. My brother was probably 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said, Mommy, how are you leaving our dad? And I just couldn't understand. She said, I'm not going to tell you because I don't ever want you to judge your dad on the problems that we have as husband and wife.
Mm.
But in time, you will see what I'm talking about. And Ricardo, we did. Eventually, we saw what she meant. Um, like I said, I couldn't understand because we thought it was the perfect marriage because we never saw them argue unless he got drunk and came home and just started just breaking stuff for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But it was nothing that made me think there was a problem in their marriage,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know?
You saw you
And then
saw you
once,
saw that as two different things. One is his rage, and you knew that he was drunk, right? You knew he was drunk. You knew he was, enraged. He was very angry, and he was breaking things. But he wasn't at that moment. He wasn't yelling at mom.
no,
No. Okay.
he wasn't.
Right. So
He
that's
was
that's
just,
why. Yeah.
you know, that's why I didn't understand. But I didn't know what he would tell her behind closed doors. And before she passed away, she told me, I said, Mommy, why didn't you ever explain to us why one day you just decided to leave? She said, because I didn't want to tarnish your feelings or your memories or your thoughts against your father based on how I felt, you
Mm.
know? And as
Yep.
we got older, we noticed things, he would come home. Yeah, he would provide for us, but then he would get dressed and leave, and we wouldn't see him till Sunday.
Yeah. Like for the weekend, you
So
mean?
yeah, for the weekend with
He
his
would dis
friends and
he would disappear.
disappear. And
Okay.
Mommy never, you know, I guess us modern wives, we're different. We're a little bit more mouthy and we just tend to probably express ourselves. But my mom, she just held it in and till she couldn't no more. And then when she left, like, wow, why would you leave
So
this amazing man when he wasn't really amazing to her, but he was
yeah.
to us?
Well, that right there is an incredible story. That part of it I find absolutely fascinating, right? This idea that um, your mom that 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 you were unaware of how your mother felt about her relationship with him, that you were unaware of how he might have felt about his relationship with her, and how in your world, mom and dad were a great couple, and that everything was fine until one day she drops the bomb and says, I'm leaving. I mean, that's, how do you feel about that? Well, so the question, so here's how I wonder if you might answer it this way. Have you done things differently with your children, your family, your husband?
Yes. In that sense, I kind of, when we first started off, I was like my mom. Anytime I felt that something was going to explode or that we were going to disagree, I chose to go behind closed doors so my children wouldn't feel nervous. Or, sometimes we say things and the kids tend to either side with mom or side with dad. And I never want them to feel that
Mm-hmm.
way. You know how my mom explained it. I don't want you to feel how I feel about your dad because he didn't do it to you, he's done it to me. So little by little, that's how we would do it. And then I guess I'm real outspoken. And if you hurt my feelings or you say something wrong, I'll let it go, and then I'll be like, hey, Ricardo,
No, you
this
mean,
is how I
but
feel.
you're talking about your husband, you and your husband. So you're
Right.
saying that, right? You and your husband. So when your husband would,
Mhm.
so when was? Do you remember the last time that you argued with your husband in front of your children?
It's been a long time. Well, let me set this straight. My son is 33 and he's been married for 5 years, and my daughter is 25 and she lives in Texas. So when they were younger, I mean, maybe we were in the car and we argued, it kind of starts with go left, go right, and then, it just explodes. But my thing is, we're not going to do this in front of the children.
So you didn't.
That's all. That's always been my thing because but at
So
the same time they know you could tell when something's not right at the house. The kids are like, hey, is mom okay, or is everything okay with dad? They notice even though they don't
but
hear
you
you
didn't. So how is it that your children noticed that you and your husband or um your partner, that were you married? Were you married? Am I calling him the right thing?
Yes,
Okay. So how
yes,
did
yes,
your
we're
children know
married.
that you and your husband were fighting and that things were not perfect, but you and your sisters did not know did not know that your mom and your dad were fighting? What's the difference?
The difference is that I speak to the kids. I think my mom tried to not shelter us, but I
Okay.
guess she didn't want us to feel the pain, or she didn't want us to feel what she felt. My mom always made sure we were first taken care of before she took care of herself.
So the big
And
difference
then
is, I'm sorry, let me interrupt. The big difference is that the lesson that you learned was, I'm going to talk to my children, bring them into what's happening. So maybe you were not fighting in front of them, but you brought them in so that they knew what was going on. All right, that's very cool, right? That's very
because
cool.
yeah, it is because it was a very, like I said, it was a bomb to us the day she picked up her
Yeah,
stuff and said, I'm leaving.
yeah,
I'm like, how do you leave this perfect man?
yeah, exactly. But there were two major bombs dropped side by side. One is I'm leaving. Two, he's not perfect.
Right. Right.
Or at the very least, there was something wrong. You didn't know what it was, but later you found out that he was not perfect and that there was a good
Right.
reason why she left. Okay.
Yeah.
So she left you with him?
Um, well, she left just for like 2 or 3 weeks, but
Oh,
she
okay.
did leave we, like I said, we were maybe 13 or 14, the twins and I. So we knew how to wash, we knew how to cook, we knew how to clean. She took Juan because, again, he was harsh on Juan. For what reason, I don't know. His only son, born on the same day as his birthday, January 16th, both of them. And just, sometimes I think verbal abuse is worse than physical abuse, in the sense where a bruise will go away, but those words play in your head over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Th- yeah, that's a weird statement for me. I struggle with it. I think we could have an entire 6 hour conversation on which is worse, verbal or physical. But just so that I can share my point on this one, I highly think that verbal is worse than physical. But anyway, so we'll agree to disagree at this moment. Um,
You will.
um, wow, that's incredible. So, but she came back like 3 weeks later.
She did. She came back, because she said she couldn't leave her daughters.
Yeah.
I guess she was trying to prove a point to him.
Wait, you
And
guess?
then,
Did she ever tell you the
sir,
expression? Are you guessing, or did she ever mention
uh,
that?
no, I'm guessing.
You are guessing.
you
Okay.
know, because I guess us calling her, mommy, when are you coming home? Mommy, and it's the selfish part of us. I think if we would have had a little bit more of an understanding why she left. Like I said, we had this picture
Yeah.
painted that he was so great. If we would have known that there was problems, maybe we wouldn't have subjected her. It's like she sacrificed her happiness to make sure her 4 children were okay.
Well, I mean, look, first and foremost, it's a huge ask. What you're saying is a big ask of someone 13, 14. No matter how much cleaning and ironing you can do at that age, to have the level of maturity at 13 and 14 to be able to understand your mother's situation is unreasonable, at least. There was no way for you to have been the level of maturity that would be required for you to be able to understand your mother. It's we're talking about adulthood, and you were still children. At 13 and 14, you're children. So don't be hard on yourself for that. It had nothing to do with you. You didn't. I mean, I have to say this. You didn't do. You didn't force your mother knowingly, at all. If you did, it only makes sense. I mean, from the perspective of a loving child and a loving parent, what you did was absolutely correct. I mean, thank God that you were so um, um, uh, that you were so set in getting her back, and in trying to get them back together, and in trying to be with her again. It's the right thing to do. If you had done anything differently, I think that we would be having a conversation about how could you be so cold? How could you not care about your mother leaving, or no, don't ever, yeah, no, you did the right thing. Look, relationships are complex. I think that I mean, this conversation is absolutely unbelievable, right? I mean, to think that God, it's interesting that you never asked your dad what was wrong with him, and maybe he didn't know what was wrong with him. Who knows? And he took that to his grave, right? No one ever asked him why he was so angry.
No, we didn't ask him why he was so angry, but as time went on, we got married. Um, we went on our way. My mom and dad tried to work it out, and eventually she left. She left again.
Yeah.
And at that time, when she left, he would try to manipulate us.
Yeah.
And that's where we kind of learned that that's how he did her when we were little and we didn't understand, and he would try to, Ricardo, he would call at 10 o'clock at night and tell me, I don't have any clean uniforms and I don't know how to use the washing machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here at 10 o'clock, I'm leaving, going to go help him. And then he would tell me, well, if your mom was here, I wouldn't have to make you come, so
Yeah.
it was, and I would ask him, I was like, Papi, why did mom leave? And he would never admit to it,
Right.
and then the thing is, like, he would, like I said, try to manipulate us, use us to get, not to get back at her, but try to, because he knew that if we asked, she would probably think about it versus him asking, she would say no.
Yeah.
So, and
Hey.
I asked him, I said, why did mom leave? And he never said it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it had a lot to do with the alcohol, with
Yeah.
nobody wants to say that their dad's an alcoholic. He was an
No.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to admit that there was, in my opinion, some type of psychological issue, because you just don't transform from one person to just like a monster,
Yeah.
and as we got older, we noticed it more. One day he came to my house and he told me, oh, I'm just going to kill myself.
Yeah.
And I was so angry with him. And I told him, I said, if you're going to kill yourself, leave my house, because my children and I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, he's like, well, I'm just going to go sit on the couch. So that puts in my
Yeah.
mind, he would talk to my mom like that, and maybe she was afraid of him, and I love him. I love he's in heaven. May he rest in peace. He was my dad. I loved him, but I did notice
Yeah.
his ways, once we were old enough to realize, oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Lala,
How, how do
I can barely hear you. Okay, there you are.
Sorry,
Hey,
Ricardo.
no, that's okay. Lala, quick,
That was
quick thing. Is someone watching the TV? Is it at all
no.
possible to turn it off?
What TV? There's no TV on.
Oh, I thought it
I'm
was
in the
weird that
dining room. Are
is
you
there
talking
music?
about the music
Is
that's
that
playing?
music? Oh, is that music? Yeah.
Hold on,
Okay,
hold on.
thanks.
Ricardo, is this why you only do it with guys? Because girls got too much going on at one time. The phone rings, the music's on. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Where do you live?
I live in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, in Jacksonville. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
we were born in New York and we moved here. I think I was 3, and we've been here ever
Yeah.
since.
So, I mean, this is a very interesting story. Are you comfortable with telling it, with telling the story about your dad's very particular behavior, and the fact that you are now recognizing that he was an alcohol. Wait, you did say that he was an alcoholic, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I am comfortable, Ricardo, because I feel that it impacted us as daughters, and I'm sure that it impacted my brother and anybody who has to deal with an alcoholic. It's hard. It's hard. It's sad, and I'm not embarrassed to tell my story. When I talk about my father, I talk about him, but he had a lot of faults, like we all do, you know, but it needs to be spoken about because men feel, oh, I'm not going to talk about it. Mental illness is another thing that needs to be talked about, especially in men, because either they don't want to admit it or they're embarrassed, but things happen. We all need help one point in our life.
So why did you bring up mental illness? Because from your point of view, beyond the alcoholism, there was a mental illness component that, okay, yeah,
And that I feel that it was never diagnosed, but
right.
just from how things transpired. In one example, he said that my father painted cars. He had his own body shop, until the time he got sick. And he said that he would tell us, "Oh, how I wish I would have never pretended to be crazy when they were drafting people to go into the military." So we would just say, "Well, Papi, tell us what happened." He said that he said he didn't want to go, and when they came to draft him, he said that the man told him to have a seat. He said that he climbed on top of the desk. He just did random things. And part of me is like, maybe is he really cuckoo in real life?
You questioned it when he was telling the story. You wondered if he actually was that he was telling the story as from the perspective of somebody normal, but that was actually normal behavior for him. But maybe he recognized it at the time, and he recognized that you would see it as abnormal behavior, but because of the way that he was telling the story, he could pass as normal. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right, right.
That's interesting.
And you hear it one time, and then when things happen, then you wonder, was this really
Yeah,
him acting this way,
yeah,
or is this really something wrong?
right.
I honestly believe that there was something, not that he was a psycho, but something wasn't right, you know?
Well, no, I mean, I don't. He certainly doesn't appear to be a psychopath, but mental
Right.
illness definitely, yeah, yeah, like some sort of psychosis, perhaps. Yeah, who knows? I mean, anyway, so yeah, so you made me think that, for instance, when you were little, um, so much of what you thought was normal, and even to today, you might still be considering as normal behavior, or like when, how you were saying that, well, we didn't see any of the bad things. I'm wondering if to a great extent you were just not able to connect the dots because of your age, and there was a lot of craziness that you were seeing. It's just that you were not recognizing it, right? And that's, again, that's normal behavior by children. I mean, it isn't our job to try to psychoanalyze our parents. We all grow up assuming that they are wonderful, loving, and to a great extent just ideal, right? Perfect. I mean, how can we possibly know what imperfections are when we're just coming into the world? It is all normal, right? All of the behaviors are normalized, right? It isn't until we begin to see other parents or other adults that we go, wait a minute, what? This is, my dad wasn't doing that. My dad was doing something completely different, that you start to being able to compare. And that doesn't happen until later. Yeah.
I totally, totally agree. You know, back then when we thought it was something funny or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we all laugh. Oh yeah, you said, and now you thinking like, wow, maybe he
Yeah.
did need a little bit of medicine.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
You thought he was being a wonderful, funny dad, but he wasn't being funny at all. He was just, he was being a little nutty. He was, yeah, he was being, what's the word? Um, he was exhibiting particular behaviors that were, like you said, that had to do with mental health. He
right?
was he was showing his unhealthy mental, right, I don't know, cognitive behaviors, right? Like the way that he thought of things, that's how he did him, and you thought, oh, that's so cute, that's dad. But things were weird. There were some things that stood out. Like there was a little bit of
Right,
weird that might be cute and funny, but there were things that stood out. Like I'm gonna go sit in the middle of the street. It's like, whoa,
right.
wait a minute. Yeah, that doesn't seem
You know
right.
that
Yeah,
no, and that was like one of the first. You know, now as an adult, you'd sit back and think, you know, like we're doing right now, trying to analyze. Like you said, some things do stick out. I can't remember sometimes what I did yesterday, but I can vividly remember that night, you
yeah,
know, and that's a sign like, yeah, something was wrong with this man because who tells somebody, oh, I'm going to go sit in the street,
yeah,
you know? And literally, he went and said, and we cried and begged him until one of the twins sat with him. And then it's just random things like, I don't know if it was his way to ask for help. I don't know if it was for attention, but part of me really thinks that the alcohol and whatever, you know, I'm not diagnosing him with
right.
bipolar or whatever, but there's something not right,
Yeah. Well,
you know?
yeah. So yeah, I was expecting a slightly different conversation. This is an interesting turn of events. Um, so I mean, what's a lesson? So so for you, you basically one of the things that you had control of later as a parent yourself was my mom and my dad did certain things that really um um really they were very confusing as a child. So my parents did this played this game above us that was very confusing, make you know almost making us believe or leading us to believe that everything was right. Later we found out that it wasn't, that everything wasn't as nice as good as it was, and that was disturbing. So then you said to yourself, now that I'm a wife, I'm a mother, what I'm going to do is I'm going to achieve a better balance, right? Because you said this earlier. You said I don't want to fight in front of my children, but I do want them to know that Dad and I had a discussion. Is that how you thought of it?
I did. Because if it ever turned out, I didn't want them to have the same surprise I had. If things weren't going to work out between, and I thank God we've been married, it'll be 32 years in November. I thank God that it has worked. Has it been perfect? Far from perfect, you know. He was in the
Oh,
military for 8 years.
okay.
So I was kind of like a single mom
Yeah.
to three kids, you know,
Wow.
because we did have three children. Um, one of our sons passed away.
Oh, I'm
And when
sorry.
he passed away, he got out of the military because, you know, he was overseas when it happened. But my goal was not to give my children the surprise, but I wanted my kids to feel the love that we felt, that I felt. Now, we're probably going to touch a subject that where you probably wanted this conversation to go, the relationship between my husband and our son is not as, I don't know how to say, as close as it is as my husband and our daughter.
Really?
And again it is the daddy's girl, you know, and
Yeah.
then you want the boys to be the machos, the boys to be tough, you know,
Oh,
and
your
it's not.
your husband is still did that. He does he still do it or not anymore?
Not anymore,
But he
you know,
did
but
when
it
he
was
was
a
a
lot of,
kid. Oh,
mhm,
oh,
you
that's
know, and
hard.
it
That
was
breaks my heart.
mine too, Ricardo,
Oh,
mine too,
yeah,
because why be so different with one and not the other?
Yeah, I know that I've been hard on my boys, but I love them. I hug them and I kiss them and I tell them they're the best. And would I treat look, I don't know how I would treat a daughter. I don't know. I don't know. But eh, this is such a weird moment for me because I want to judge your husband, like I really do. I'm in this position internally, right, where I'm like, oh, how dare you? Why were you not so sweet to your son? But shoot, I don't know, man. Without a daughter, I can't tell what I would have done. So he was tough on him. Um,
Mhm.
did the relationship begin to heal between them earlier rather than later?
Um, I think it was rather later than earlier.
Oh,
Like I said, we were teen parents.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then we had our son. He got married. He left to the military. So for 8 years, it was, um,
It
my
was.
son and I
Wait a minute.
for the
What?
most
You
part.
guys, you guys had a baby, and then he left. Wait. For where did he go for 8 years?
No, he was in the Navy for 8 years.
But wow, jeez.
So, when he was gone on the ship and, he was out
Yeah,
on deployment. So, yeah, he would come home, and it was always the kids and I, you know, but when they're younger, it's kind of, it's not being a single parent. We just have to, for 6 to 8 months, we have to adjust mom being mom and dad
yeah,
to these kids. And we do it. And then when they come home from the ship, it's like, I would tell him just how you have to um, get used to being with us.
yeah,
We have to get used to being with you.
yeah. Did
So with the
yeah,
boy, it was harder. I guess he figured you're the man of the house, take care of your mom.
yeah.
But at the same time, he was a little boy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really really hard to judge your husband
Mhm.
because it was wow. I mean, that's just such a roller coaster of. I mean, you just like dumped this crazy bucket of cold ice on my shoulders with the story because the complexity of what you're describing just makes my mind blow. Meaning, he was so young. He was out in the away from home, not present for the most important years of your child's life. He was not present for and he was in the military, so he was providing for his family, right? Because you guys are still
Yeah.
together. I'm
Yes.
assuming that he
Yes.
was. So
Yes.
he just wasn't around. um and now the boy's growing up just with mom and all of mom's wonderful caring love, and here now shows up this guy with his own ideology about what being a father of a boy must be, with being very young himself and not really having enough maturity to be able to distinguish between the things that are working with this child and the things that are not, and probably primarily trying to break him out of habits, or like rather break him into habits that the dad, a young immature dad, believes, and that's his belief system. So you can't fault him for that. But trying to get it all in within the time that he is home, between the military.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he's an amazing father. But sometimes it's that tough love. And I don't understand it because I was never given that tough love. So as a daughter, you look at it one way, and then my brother gets treated, you got to be this macho
Yeah,
man or whatever.
yeah,
And then as a wife, to see these guys bump heads sometimes is
yeah,
hard because
yeah,
you like, do I pick my husband's side? Do I pick my son's side? But to me, it's just a pattern on how they grew up.
yeah,
We're Colombian, he's American, and maybe his dad didn't
yeah,
bond the way that
yeah,
I bond with mine.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and like you said, we were very immature young teen parents. Here we are trying to be parents, and we don't even know how to be a parent because you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No,
But
no good parenting was modeled for either one of you guys, right? And this is what a lot of people have a really hard time with understanding. If what was modeled for you by your parents wasn't ideal, and you marry and you come together with somebody whose parents also didn't model good behavior, what's going to happen when you guys come together? It's going to be really, really, really complex. but but that's an idea that appears to be far more um obvious to recognize at a later age. Yeah, when
mhm.
when you've achieved greater maturity. Yeah. Oh my God. So
So
young. How
and
was she? I can't imagine you guys so young with children. It's like every time I hear these stories, I just, I mean, like my oldest is 13. To think that 4 years from now he's gonna have a child is like, yeah, right. I mean, he can't even tie his own shoelaces. Now he's gonna take care of somebody else.
exactly. And that, I'm not gonna lie to you. I I thank my mom and dad for being the way they were with me after we had our son, because my mom wasn't the kind of mom. Now I'm that grandma. Mommy, can you watch the baby? I'm going, no, you had this baby, you take this baby with you. You want to go party? No, moms don't party. Moms stay with it, and I thank her for that because I, I'm the mom that I am. If I could be a fifth of the mom my mom was, I would just be ecstatic. But she taught us, and luckily his parents, they were strict on him too. So his dad went. He was supposed to go to college and play football, and that's what his dad's dream was. And he said, "No, Dad, I have a son. I'm joining the military."
Uh,
So he wanted to provide for us. And I thank God a lot of teen moms don't end up with the father of their children. And I'm lucky enough that 36 years later, we're still here,
yeah.
you know? So he's a good guy.
36.
And 36 years, and I'm 49.
That's
So imagine
unbelievable.
all our life, we grew up
All
together.
their
We
lives.
you had we had to, and things that we've endured. We didn't know how to be parents,
Yeah.
and then we didn't know how to bury a child.
Yeah.
And now we're grandparents and we're living the good life. We get to spoil them, and the relationship with the
Yeah.
children is better. You live and you learn, Ricardo. You really do.
Well,
You don't
yeah.
want the
Yeah.
same patterns to go on, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
sometimes it does. Some
Yeah.
patterns aren't broken, and some kids don't get to, I don't know. I thank God that I had my mom and dad for the years that we had, and some of them were lessons that we had to learn, and then some things now we sit back and realize, yeah, maybe something was wrong,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then that makes you think, is something going to be wrong with my children, or am I going to do the same pattern with them?
You worry?
But
You think about it?
um, I've thought about it,
Yeah.
for me and for my brother too. He like I said, I'm 10 years older than him, and Juan took a different path than all of us. I think God, none of us had any bad habits. My brother, and I'll speak about it. He knows, that we talk about it, because to me it's kind of like a testimony. He did, he started off smoking marijuana and then just trying other stuff, and to me that was, and I'm not making any excuses and I don't condone it, but to me that was like his escape of, why couldn't my dad love me the way he loved my sisters.
Right.
And
Yeah. Well,
but
so let me
he
let me say, look, everyone's got different coping mechanisms, right? And some people need that, right? So I'll give you, so here's an example, and it's not a comparison, but I mean, on this, like along the same lines, you know, my father, I've said a million times, that I have like two, three memories of him, and all three are bad. Right. I don't have a single memory of my father where he was sweet and loving. like yours. He was a physically, emotionally, aggressive, violent at times, alcoholic. Um, but I personally, I don't know if I was shielded by my mother. I probably, well enough, so that I didn't suffer the brunt of his behaviors. So yeah, so there may be huge differences. I personally didn't feel the need to self medicate to cope. But look, it's absolutely completely understandable that, I mean, some people are hurt that way, where just the question becomes so, in my case, my question as to why he did the things that he did, then the truly ironic thing is that he's still around. And I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day where it's like, he could call me today, but he hasn't. It's like, that's like mind blowing. It's like, don't you know that you have a son? Like, but anyway, that's a story for another night. But um yeah, it's interesting how, different people deal with different situations differently, like your sisters, right? If you were like, they're a perfect example of this situation where I bet you, even though they were together the entire time, each one has their own individual story,
Right.
even though they're twins, right? Each one has their own idea of what happened, their own story of what happened, and
Mhm.
to the extent that one might cope by drinking a glass of wine, every couple of nights or whatever, to sort of like soothe whatever traumatic events happened when they were little, and the other one is like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? Nothing traumatic here.
Right.
Yeah.
And you hit it on the head with that, because that's how they are. One of them is boisterous about it, and one of them, I just like, let's just sweep it under the carpet and it'll be okay. But it's just different, and just to backpedal a little on your comments earlier about your dad, it's mind blowing to me, because they grew up, those Salcidos grew up at them, as in no disrespect, they grew up in a family, it was so many of them. How do you not, my mom, like you said, it's a story for another day. And like I told you on the message, my mom said that, I guess you and my sisters are the same age, and you guys would start to crawl, and I would see y'all crawling, and I would step on your feet and take off. So why not reach out to your son? Why not reach out to your daughter? There's a lot of mothers too. How do you, as a mom, you
Mm,
carry this child for 9 months, and it's like they don't even exist,
yeah,
And
that's a good.
I get it that maybe things happen to you in your life, but
Right.
why would you want somebody else to feel the way you felt? You know?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think of that as a perspective based parenting, right? Like if my mother is, I don't know though, I half listen when she tells me this story, but I think she has told me that my grandfather um was not particularly nice to my father, or something along those lines, and also even mean to grandma, or to his wife, my
Mhm.
grandma. um and and if that was the case, that my father wouldn't be able to, like what sort of a person cannot say, it didn't feel good when my dad was mean to me, so I'm gonna be mean, I'm gonna be nice to my kid. um
Right.
or or I remember when my dad would, leave to go get, coffee from the mountains, and be gone for a whole week, and I missed them. I'm sure that my son must be feeling the same way about me, right? Like I think that's what you were kind of saying, and I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Right.
definitely. It's like, and we've been talking about this the entire time. You said I didn't like what my mother did, and so I'm doing it differently, right? I like what my mother did, so I'm doing the same thing, and that
Mhm.
just makes sense, right? But then when somebody disappears, is a question that I've always asked, and this is why so often I've said that, I tell people, don't abandon your children, right? I say, when people say to me, Ricardo, my girlfriend's pregnant and I'm in my teens, what do I do? I'm like, well, whatever you do, don't abandon your child. It's horrendous because and I say, that I always say that I feel that I was abandoned. I don't feel abandoned, but he did that. Like, I don't feel like an abandoned child, but that's what he
Right.
did.
Right.
you know,
Right.
I, so, um, it's so, it's so, I mean, I love these conversations because it's just like, what the hell is going on, right? Like with so many of us, what was happening with your dad? What was happening with my dad? Like, what was happening with your, like your mom got together with him and they had this relationship. It's like almost like, how do they even ever get together?
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And this is an interesting idea because here you are at, what did you say? At 15, you get pregnant, you have a child. Um, and my God, against all odds, you guys are still together. I mean, literally
Mhm.
against all odds, you're still together. I mean, what are the odds that you would be together, right? Um, and here
Right.
you made it happen. So how is it like? And there's like so many variations on the same theme of parenting, right? Or of relationships, and then parenting. It's just
Right.
I find it to be absolutely fascinating. There's just like so many different worlds in which people are existing.
Yep. And I agree. Like I said, it's an honor to say, after 36 years, and I always tell him, I remember when I had him and I graduated and I went straight to nursing school. And he's like, well, why are you going straight to nursing school? You don't want to take a break? I said, because I don't know if you're going to be around. I have to provide for my son. That was my mentality, because we had other friends that had, babies, and like you said, the fathers either went on their way and left this mom to take in. I'm like, how am I going to, I can't live with my parents forever, but how am I going to take care of my son if I don't have an education or something? But luckily, like I said, he's an awesome dad, and as time went on, he realized, the military did take most of my time, and then with our son passing away, I guess sometimes you realize life is real short, let me change a little bit. But the relationship that we have, it's like kind of like a, not to sound creepy, but like brothers and sisters, we grew up
Yeah,
together. So we had to learn together. And,
yeah,
you just sit back and thinking you want things to be so perfect. And sometimes it's not perfect, and nothing's perfect,
yeah.
but you have to work it. You have to really work it out. If he would have been a little bit like my dad used to always tell us, oh my God, if you girls were married in Colombia, y'all probably be dead the way you speak to your husband. And it's not that we're disrespectful,
Yeah,
but we weren't afraid to say, hey, you hurt my feelings, or
yeah,
hey, you made me mad.
yeah, yeah. Your dad's comment is scary. It's like, it's not recently I do work with perpetrators of domestic violence,
Mm.
and every once in a while somebody says, in my country this wouldn't have happened, and I'm like, oh, don't say that. That breaks my heart. I mean, it's like, if you're here in this DV class, the last thing I want to hear from you is to tell me that you would have been able to get away with it in your country. Yeah, I mean, I mean, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I grew up with, four women, and my mom is, she's tough lady. She's a tough lady. She's so yeah. I think of myself as a serious feminist. There's no question about it. No, no, it's to say anything. I mean, to go against feminism is I think it's almost like an attack on my mother, which made everything happen for her four children on her own. So, uh, but that's a whole other story. Um, so wait a minute, let me get something straight, because I just want to make sure that I heard everything right. You had two kids. No, you had three.
Three.
You had three, and you lost the youngest,
My middle
the
child.
middle. Okay, okay.
Hmm. So he was a
Um,
boy. It would
Another.
have been
So
two boys and a girl.
was it boy boy girl?
Boy, boy, girl. Yes.
Okay, and wow. So I mean, can you tell me how old he was?
He was 3.
Oh, okay.
He had a chemical imbalance that made his brain swell up,
Oh,
and he passed away. But yeah, and Ricardo, he probably would have been a real sauce because he was at the age of 3. My dad used to call him Squirrel because he didn't stay still. So he was probably going to be a little bit crazy like the rest of those sauce.
well, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not bashing the Salcedo name because I love being, my uncles are great, but it to me it's like been a pattern of, and not only the men, because some of the, and I don't know if I upset anybody by saying this, but some of the aunts need a little bit of help too. Now they're a little bit older, but
yeah,
I think alcohol is
yeah, yeah,
the main denominator, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
love them, and I know some of them more than I know the other ones. Like I know that you're my cousin, but I don't know you. But it's to me, it's like some are afraid to even say that um, help was needed.
yeah,
Maybe it's too late now, but
yeah.
for us and our
But yeah,
children,
yeah. It's weird. Yeah, I who was fast. The first person to bring to this to my attention was Pacho. Yeah, he's the first one to say. Like, I remember when Pacho and I started talking 2 to 3 years ago. We started talking like often, quite often, and he would tell me these stories. And he's the first one to say, like, look, there's something wacky with with the uncles, right? There was like it's like, and now you mentioned, and he actually never broached the subject on the aunts, um, but now that you're saying it, it's almost like it's like a period in history, like a moment in time where alcohol became an issue for an entire family. And it's interesting because I bet you if we were to do a little, I bet you if I were to do a little bit of research, I would find these sort of like pockets in history people's in families' histories where there are where there are there's this rampant like this excessive alcoholism by a large group of the family members, and then maybe the next generation there's no alcoholism, right? And then maybe it's just very cyclical, hopefully, because we didn't become alcoholics. As far as I know, we haven't, because I know that Pacha talks about um, how most of us, or all of us, are good dads and moms. So I hope that doesn't mean that our kids are going to be crazy alcoholics.
you know.
No, it's so unlikely. That's a crazy thought.
Yeah, it is a crazy thought, but it's true, And then I'm sure if you were to ask a couple of other cousins, and not like I said, not to degrade the name or to disrespect anybody, but if it's something that really, I'm just going to stick to my story. I believe alcohol in in our family was the root cause of
Yeah,
a lot of heartaches, and my dad ended up dying of cancer. um yeah, he painted cars. Did that have anything to, did that help, did that progress his death? It's just a lot of thoughts, and we need to be, I guess back then they didn't talk about stuff like we have the honor to talk, or the privilege or the
yeah,
courage, because
yeah,
I wonder how many other cousins would tell,
yeah,
how the situation was, or
yeah,
but it needs to be known, like you said, for our children, what's, is it a cycle? Does it skip a generation? So
yeah. I think you used a really interesting word. It may very well be a privilege. We may be privileged enough to be able to have these conversations and to have the time to have them as well. right? I mean, it may be a privilege of ours. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to sit and review, um, think about their own thinking, study their own behaviors. It's just, they don't have the privilege, they don't have the time. They're in circumstances that are too complex for them to be able to stop and just enough time to just to review and take stock of what's going on. It is a real privilege. I think it's such a great word, because I've had this conversation before with other people, where I say, well, why isn't this person taking the time to stop and analyze and perhaps read a book? Because look, we've had the printing press for 500 years, and there's books for every generation, and like every generation that I've come in contact with there has been books, meaning my parents had books, my grandparents had books, right? So everybody that I know of has had books available to them, right? Maybe not as many as there are today, but there was information out there. And yet, it certainly appears that a large percentage, if perhaps the vast majority of the population, isn't self-educating. And it's not all because they don't want to. It's because maybe it's a privilege they cannot afford for whatever reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Dad, so that's your story with Dad. Well, I'm floored. I wasn't expecting you to tell I'm seeing it as a sad story. Am I not seeing it sad? I'm sad for you. I mean, not in a bad way. Like, I don't feel sorry for you. I mean, more empathetic than sympathetic. Like, how I wish that maybe that he had been more caring, and that I had expected that maybe he might say, um, that he loved you from time to time and hugged you and was special to you.
Well,
But
to us, he was. To the girls, we were, and what it makes me sad for the boy, for his only son, you know, that yeah, he would probably rub his head or whatever, but why not share that love that you shared with us with him? You know, Juan is an amazing father. Juan's like us. Juan with his son, he luckily he's been blessed with two boys, and he is just he's an amazing father. I wish that maybe one day you could speak to him one on one, and maybe he could express himself.
yeah, oh,
Um,
that's a good point.
but
Ask him for me.
I I will, but Juan's got a sailor mouth. But it would be neat, kind of, from one Salcedo male to another South. You know what I mean? And not only, I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of things in common on how you feel. And I I'm not saying that Juan didn't love my dad, but he yearned, he wanted to feel the love that we felt,
Yeah,
as girls, but I don't know. Like I said, it's a cycle that I hope that you and Jorge, Pacho, all y'all break,
yeah,
because
yeah,
these boys don't deserve to feel what you guys may have felt once
yeah,
upon a time.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I do find fascinating that from the get-go, your focus on this, and maybe I'm fixated on the wrong thing, but like your focus on this conversation was how bad you felt for your brother.
Mhm. I do.
It's
I do.
it's interesting
And
how strongly you feel about that, to the extent that you've almost chosen to make that the center of your conversation, rather than the conversation being about you and how you felt, as a daughter of a father. Huh. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the
because
takeaway. Hmm.
yeah, because I felt love. I felt his love, and yeah, while he exploded sometimes, or maybe he didn't treat mom right sometimes, I was okay. But my focus was, and it is, how did Juan feel? Why did Juan have to feel outcast, or why did Juan feel the love we felt? Or maybe, and it's me trying to make excuses. Maybe my dad was too old when my brother was born. You know, they say that old people shouldn't have children, but
Who
Juan
says that?
deserved to be loved like we were loved. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know, I just feel that
yeah.
why treat a son different? You know, he's your legacy. He's going to take over, and why make him feel
So that's all like higher level thinking. You're just like you are. I think that you're thinking way beyond anything that your dad thought about. Like you're just you've left him. You've left like whatever space he occupied as a man and a father. You've left it when you say things like that. I think your dad just never considered the kind of thinking that you're going through right now, which is solid and beautiful. You know. But if he had,
but
I mean,
we
if
would
so, yeah,
ask him,
yeah,
Papi, why did you yell at him? You know, because by that time, Papi, why did you yell at him? Oh, and you know, I don't know if I should say, he said, ah, y'all just going to make him gay. Why? Because we try to help him, or because we try to, I guess we try to fill the void that my dad wouldn't give. You know, he would, I know he's not going to grow up to be a man if y'all keep letting him do whatever he wants,
yeah,
or y'all buying him whatever he wants. But how does that make him that type of man? When
yeah,
we asked for a doll, we got a doll, you know,
yeah.
all he wanted was a toy gun or a car. And oh, it just, I don't know.
It's
I
so,
don't know. It was like
yeah,
a disconnect.
yeah. But you know, it's interesting. It's so it's the moment that you said you said the word gay. It that was a theme for our family at that time. I asked my mother why, when I was a kid, she didn't hug me and kiss me or tell me that she loved me. And she said, because everyone at the time was afraid that boys were going to be turned gay if if you showed too much affection. That's what my mom said, and that's what your dad is saying. This is like what people were saying around that time. There was a real fear, and I don't know. And we're gonna have to explore this conversation. It was maybe maybe it was a fear that was put in people by the church, right? By, maybe the idea was being sold in church, right? Who knows? Because how is it possible that all these people are, running around with the same crazy idea that being gentle to boys and allowing them to cry is going to turn them gay? What a most ridiculous. But I don't know if I'm judging the past through the wrong lens. I I'd have to see. I would have to do. I'm going to have to do some research on what was happening in the '70s with this whole gay thing. I mean, is it a global phenomenon? It's a North American thing, a South American, Central West, where people in the '70s that were in Colombia sharing an idea that was happening also in other countries around, from Central to North America. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, and it wasn't just one time that it was said, you know, I mean, you know, they use that word freely in Spanish, but what effect did it have on Juan? You know, did it make him, I don't know, you know, but why, like you said, why couldn't a son get hugged? Or why couldn't a son get a kiss goodnight, you
Yeah.
know, instead of calling him a name and, you know, keep it going, you know?
Mm.
So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 I mean, hey, look. So bottom line is, what was done, right? I mean,
Right?
we can analyze it all we want, and perhaps we have gone as far as we need to go, and primarily that, if there's a good lesson here, is for any. I mean, I talk about this often, but I'm going to have to say it again, because it's come up again. So it isn't just me, it's come up. You can hug your boys and kiss them goodnight. They're not going to turn gay. Okay? So please, if you're listening to this, hug your boys, love your boys, give them kisses, tell them you love them, they're going to be, if they're heterosexual now, they're going to be heterosexual later. If they're homosexual now, they're going to be homosexual later. So, and just, and here's another interesting comment. Okay, so this is my personal opinion. Okay, personal opinion. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being homosexual.
Not at
So,
all.
so
Not at
here,
all.
right? So here we grew up, with this idea that we were not given shown affection because they were afraid that of something that we're no longer afraid of, right?
Right.
We're not afraid of it. You're not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of it. Jorge's not afraid of it. Juan's not afraid of it. Pacho's not afraid of it. Nobody's afraid of it anymore. Nobody's afraid that anyone's homosexual. So much suffering. So much, so many of us were put through so much unnecessary suffering over something that isn't a thing. Homosexuality isn't a thing. It's like, it's not, it's, I mean, I know. So that's just my point of view, right? I don't know, man, but it's, okay. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the right angle. Even if homosexuality is a thing for you, right? For you ex-parent,
Mm-hmm.
once your child turns out to be homosexual, right? Male or female, you gotta love them no matter what. Let's just go with that.
And I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. If they're homosexual, if they're yellow, if they're green, if they're purple. I mean, you love, some parents have children that are criminals and you love them. So what's the difference, But to me, back then it was a big thing. Oh no, he's going to be, so what, But maybe that was instilled to them that it's wrong to be, like you said, maybe from the church point of view, maybe the dad's point, the grandpa's point of view. I don't know. And they were so afraid that if I hug my child, and it's not an excuse because it's sad. If I hug my son, oh, he's going to be like this. No. But
yeah, so what they could not see, they were blinded by an idea. This idea blinded them from being able to see how much their children wanted their love and their approval, and how much those men, those fathers, would have benefited from being able to hug and kiss and care for these children that ultimately they were responsible for. So, and that's an interesting idea, right? I mean, perhaps the concept of responsibility wasn't even part of their vocabulary, meaning, I don't know. Maybe that's what maybe they thought they were being responsible by making sure that they were not going to turn homosexual.
I have to agree to disagree with you, because how do you, I don't know, I guess as a mom, you love your kid regardless whether they're born with 12 toes or no toes, And of course, not all moms are like that, but why would you feel that because your child is different than what you think it should be, not love on them?
Well, no. So what I'm saying is, if the fathers thought that by giving affection they were going to turn them homosexual, then they were doing them a disservice.
Right.
If that was the mentality. Yeah.
Right.
So I could see how they, it would be on them. It would be on the father.
Right. But it's not the child's fault that it was instilled in you that you should, I just think it's a pattern that a lot of men go through, whether it's don't hug them and let them be the macho and don't cry, but there was plenty of times when they got drunk and they cried. So are you not a real man? The uncles was here
but macho and homosexuality are two different things. I mean, I think that if you're like, meaning like you and I are specifically talking about the danger in them becoming homosexuals, not in not being macho.
Right, right.
Yeah.
That's how I guess my dad would, because the things he would say is like, tienes que ser un macho. You have to, men don't cry. And, it's like, how does a man not cry? I guess it's different from a daughter, a woman's point of view, because we always want to nurture. And my son's 33 and I still want to hug him like he's two, where the dad will just go and give him a pat in the back and keep going. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know.
so I mean, I think what's valuable about the conversation is that ultimately the reason that it's so hard to judge, our parents and how they did things is if their belief system, right? If what was normalized for them, what was normal for them was that that it was ideal, right, for men to not show emotions, then a good dad would ensure that you didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just from the male perspective, right? I cannot speak for women, but
Right.
what we are absolutely saying is that that was not the women, the mother's belief system, although it was to some extent, because I'm just told you, my mom told me that the reason she wasn't
Mm-hmm.
affectionate with me was because she was afraid of making me homosexual, and so that was important that I did not become that. So from her point of view, she did an amazing job, right?
Right.
She did the right thing. Now it's obvious, right? Now she's like, she's aware, and in hindsight it's silly, but if that's what and the belief system that is shared by your entire community, then you can see how it would have been correct.
Right.
And I'm sure they were,
It's
look,
just like one of my,
yeah, go ahead.
no, like my saying, you live, you learn, Maybe later on in life, we'll look back and say, well, maybe I shouldn't have, taught them to do the, you just live, you learn. Nobody's perfect. There's no book and saying it has to be done this way.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's well, what we're trying to do here, and what we're definitely doing today is I, there's no doubt in my mind that these conversations move the needle forward. That um, because we're having these conversations openly, as you were saying earlier, more people will have an opportunity to modify belief systems that are toxic to themselves and to the children they care for. And that's important because clearly this is something that they could have benefited from. Men getting together and having a conversation and saying, guys, and also the other thing that came to mind was, I'm sure not all men or all women were on the same gay boat. Like,
Right.
I'm sure there were moms and dads that even in the 70s were hugging and kissing their children despite of what, everybody else believed.
Yep. I
Even
agree.
even in Cali, you know what I mean? Even in the same city. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a very us thing, along with the drinking.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Along with the drinking. Oh my God, Lala. So crazy, crazy story today.
Yep.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. Wow, what an odd turn of events. Completely
Yep.
unexpected. I hope that other people really enjoy the conversation as I did.
Yep. And I thank you. I thank you for, asking me to do this. And I thank you for sharing your story. A lot of people may take good from it. Not everybody's going to agree with what we think,
Right.
and maybe they think that but I commend you on being the father, that I see. Like I said, I don't know you 100%, but keep up the good work. Your mom did an amazing job. A lot of people say a woman can't raise a son, and I don't agree with that. But keep up your good work. Keep up this panel. Keep talking to the gentleman you speak to. It's, maybe we could be, maybe you could be the person who breaks, this pattern for the generations to come.
If people support the idea, I think we can do it. If people support, I think what I want to do is just continue to have the channel open, of communication, the channel of communication open, and if enough people step up and say, you know what, we got to do something because there's too much suffering going on, then we will have done it. And yeah, everyone who gets on and speaks up and speaks out will have been part of that change that we so desperately, absolutely need. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lala.
Yeah. Primo, it was great. God bless you. Take care and keep in touch.
I will. Bye bye.
All right. See you
Thanks.
later.